Unfortunately, it's clear that this council does not listen, so instead I'm going to take my time to say what MAGA has stood for these past 3 weeks. MAGA stands for trying to erase trans people from existence. MAGA stands for resegregation and racism. MAGA stands for censorship and book bans. MAGA stands for firing air traffic controllers while planes are crashing. MAGA stands for firing the people overseeing our nuclear arsenal. MAGA stands for firing military veterans and those serving them at the VA, including canceling research on veteran suicide. MAGA stands for cutting funds to education, including for disabled children. MAGA is profoundly corrupt, unmistakably anti-democracy, and most importantly, MAGA is explicitly a Nazi movement. You may have replaced a swastika with a red hat, but that is what it is. I will now engage in the time-honored American tradition of peaceful civil disobedience.
Get the heck! Get out!
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people living around?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's, it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump?
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
Israel. High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
Hey, gang. I just want to send a little message to everybody in the country real quick. If dudes that look like this right here try to kidnap you, because that's what it is, it's kidnapping. It doesn't matter if someone is quote-unquote illegal immigrant. It doesn't matter. If you take them without a warrant and without identifying yourself and without any due process and put them in a concentration camp where they sleep on concrete with an emergency blanket and don't get enough meals or showers, or even worse, send them to a third world country, it's kidnapping. It's against the law. It's against literally every related law, and it's against the U.S. Constitution. So it's illegal. So you can go call these people illegal, but what these people are doing to them is illegal, okay? So these are people most likely that don't have the legal qualifications or whatever to even be doing what they're doing, and they're kidnapping people illegally, okay? I think most of these people probably are not law enforcement. And some Nazi giving you a piece of paper that says you are doesn't make you law enforcement. That's not how it works. So I want to encourage every American, if these people or everyone visiting, if these people come for you, fight for your life. Fight for your life. And use your imagination what I mean by that. If I thought that right now somebody was going to roll up in a van and throw masked men without badges or warrants, we're going to roll up in a van and throw me in it and deport me to El Salvador, I would try to take their life, is what I would try to do. I'm not telling you what to do, but if someone did that to me, I would do everything in my power to hurt as many of them as possible, as badly as possible. If your other option is ending up in a fucking death camp that you're never going to get out of, oh well, let the chips fall where they may.
I see this as an absolute win.
Somebody please think of the children.
The only way that you can really stop this kind of thing is to arouse public opinion. It's very upsetting. It has a bad moral effect.
Forced adversity.
Ask yourself, what's more terrifying, fear or the frightened?
The facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire.
Bad, B-A-D-D, bothered about Dungeons and Dragons.
Up yours, woke moralists.
Socialism has spread the shadow of human regimentation over most of the nations of the earth.
And they're pushing identity politics with this. They 100% are.
How do you think homosexuals reveal themselves?
And the shadow is encroaching upon our own liberty.
I think there ought to be a law against them. Tonight I'm going to show you why.
Welcome to the FAP. Nancy used to do that for me. Handsy Nancy, I called her. Oh, and by the way,
there's no strategy. I have no strategy.
Are you sure?
Hello, and welcome to the FAP. I see that there are some folks taking issue with, what Mr. Cliff Cash said in that clip I showed, and I just don't understand why. Look, I'm a white guy. He's a white guy. Why don't you just take our advice? Let's listen to what Morgan and Bob have to say about it.
Well, that's like 2.5 white guys.
No, it's something I thought of whenever I was watching it earlier, and I thought it would be a good topic of discussion. And as well as just when I watch it, when I first watched him say that, I'm like, fuck yeah. But I mean, what's the practical reality of that? First of all, he does say clearly, he says, this is what I would do. I'm just telling you, but what it does is it makes you think about, fuck them for putting us in this situation where it could be ICE or it could just be some random motherfuckers that want to hurt you. You know what I mean? Like if I knew it was some random motherfuckers trying to hurt me, then yeah, I probably would definitely fight.
Well, that's part of the problem we have with the whole ICE system. And we saw this last week, even though it's fallen out of the news already with those political assassinations in Minnesota. You can just identify yourself as law enforcement now. And according to this administration, people have to believe you.
Yep.
And not treat you like you're a kidnapper. That's the policy of the federal government now.
Yeah, I'm having trouble adjusting to the new paradigm that if someone in a police uniform with a police car shows up to your house, you need to call 911. But if somebody with a mask and human growth hormone gut and a flannel shirt is kidnapping your neighbor, you can't interfere unless you want to catch federal charges.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
It's weird. And yes, I do think that the babies, the diaper diplomacy, which is a channel I just discovered today, is the only acceptable use of AI for creating content. But yeah,
it's at least transformative. I don't know that I'm okay with it, but it is at least transformative.
At least, yeah.
And it was funny, and that's the important bit. Like, I'm not a tech person like Morgan is. But I don't really see how taking raw footage and transforming someone into babies is plagiarizing other people's content.
It's a matter, I think, of the resources used to do it, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's bad too, for sure.
Well, and it's one of those things that like animators can already do that style of like make the baby look like they're talking and play someone else's speech. Like we've seen that bit before without generative AI.
That's true.
So like, it's cute. It's not the worst AI thing I've seen. And I don't, this is my opinion. If your opinion is different, good on you. I don't care.
Well, I'm glad you don't hate it. I want to go ahead and say hi to the early risers here. We got Lucifer writing. Hello, Big Fieldy, Sketchy. What up, man?
Sketchy.
Thank you for doing the
greetings, everyone.
Who else? Wow.
Wow.
And Screwface.
Good old Screwface.
Doing some mod duties for us. Appreciate that. But yeah, I was just thinking about the law enforcement, and anybody can just put on a uniform and knock. that's exactly what happened in Minnesota last weekend. I was listening to a report about more detailed timeline of how that all went down, and I didn't realize that basically the mask that he was wearing, the weird fucking mask that oddly looks kind of like my dad, was the thing that basically saved the lives of I forget the names of the first two people that he tried to kill. But essentially they, recognized that he was not law enforcement because of the mask once they opened the door, and he did not manage to get fatal shots on them before he went on to, actually fatally shoot a couple people. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and that it's sad and shocking how that has fallen out of the news, just like I was afraid it was. Where like this would just get thrown down the shitter with the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband and a bunch of other ones we've already forgotten about. There was more digital ink spilled over fucking a CEO than by months worth of hand wringing and editorializing than there was over.
People that are going to really remember it are people that believe that it was some Marxist plot.
Well, yeah, because the right wing ecosystem was immediately on. It was Marxists, it was trans people, it was, immigrants, it was whoever they could blame.
Eggs 509, jumbo 549. Yikes.
Ooh, yeah.
You think eggs are bad? Just wait until you see the price of gas over the next few weeks.
So is the Strait of Hormuz officially going to be closed now?
We don't know yet.
I don't know if it's official, but they are considering, Iran specifically is considering blockading it, which would mean
that's what we're going to get into.
For direct
talking about the ramifications, consequences of the strike on Iran, which, as far as Trump said originally, it was a complete success. Well, surprise, that's not true.
That was not true.
And then we're going to also talk about another thing that I don't want to let fly under the radar because of the bigger news, the more globally existential thready type news. This MAGA guy from South Carolina, representative, who was arrested last week, about a week ago now, a little over a week, for some, you saw the fucking title, you saw
what's going on,
and it's but the thing is it's I think we mentioned it on the Shillcast, maybe on here, but it's worth going into a little bit more because it is more egregious than I think anybody probably realized, and it just goes to show once again, pedocon fact, but.
And I'm going to use this to attack the New York Times.
Good.
Because it's Sunday.
We always love going after those mofos.
I fucking hate the New York Times.
So, yeah, with that in mind, I guess, what else is there to do but this right here?
Newsflash, asshole!
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the...
Let's talk about baby Vance here.
Now, if you watch this actual speech, those are that's the faces he's making in the speech. Like he's trying to figure out if that couch is flirting with him over there, just off camera.
He sees the couch over there and he's distracted.
Yeah, that he is uncomfortable in his pants because of that couch.
Yeah, JD Vance, by the way,
they're bombing Iran, but JD Vance is after the Ottoman.
Well, I mean, he had a message of empathy today. Which I think is just great coming from him.
We should play that message of empathy.
Yeah, I didn't actually find it. I only saw it printed that he had said it. I hadn't seen it.
I put it in the Discord.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because yikes, for that guy to be, I empathize with. No, you don't. No, you don't even
incapable of empathy.
You literally don't know the meaning of the word.
For those of you who don't remember, because it's been 10 years the last 6 months, the second day of this administration, he was at a church service with the president, wherein the bishop of the Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C. implored him and his boss to don't be a dick. and he made just the worst human faces, like a fucking 13-year-old who had to go to church an extra day that week. Those double D cushions.
Oh wait, so you're talking about just the where he the picture of his face? Is that what you're...
Yeah, the picture. Oh yeah, the speech he gave on empathy.
Dude, I don't see where that's posted anywhere here.
I thought I put that in. It's like a Blue Sky link.
There is a Blue Sky link, but I don't.
No, where did it go? I thought I.
You did not.
I did not.
We're professionals, folks.
We're great. Yeah, that's why you pay me the big bucks.
Hey, I'm just a guest here.
Yeah,
you're a permanent guest host, so we don't have to pay union dues.
Yeah, I'm a contractor.
Just like Elon's just an advisor, you know.
Right. He's in other news, like one of his rockets blew up on the launch, not even on the launch pad, on the test pad this last Wednesday.
Awesome. We'd love to hear it. I was looking at a timeline of his promises made and promises not kept in regards to the the auto driving cars since I think 2006 was the first time he said something about it.
Yeah.
And where he made a declaration about Tesla's intentions or whatever, and then just it's been nothing but kicking the can down the road over and over and over again. It's astonishing that anybody, like, how is he, because he's the richest man in the world because of his value, not because of actual liquid money thing, but like the value is because of people believing in his promises. And it's like, how do you...
And tremendous amounts of government contracts and subsidies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of capitalist realism is equating wealth with genius when there's actually no correlation at all.
No.
So just the mere fact that he is the richest person who ever existed makes a lot of people think he is the smartest person who ever lived.
So there we have he is definitely eyeing some new piece of furniture that they brought in there. Probably a nice little love seat or something, maybe a full size. But he definitely thinks that the upholstery is going to be very, very smooth on his sensitive skin. He's looking forward to that. So,
as I just said in chat,
that little slutty couch.
Yeah, as I just said in chat, Trump is bombing the Persians while Vance is eye fucking the Ottomans.
Oh, god damn, that's good.
Boom!
Shit. Comedy. That's what you come here for, folks.
That's what
comedy,
you come here
for.
No, that shot actually was taken from the moment that Trump began thanking God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the face of a man going, wait, I thought Trump was God. Why is God thanking himself? Have we adopted the royal we now?
Or yeah, go ahead.
Or that couch over there is really hot.
Or that J.D. Vance is like an adult convert to Tradcath ideologies. And so he's like, but Trump is very much an atheist. Like, even like Trump's Christian supporters.
He's an agnostic, I'd say. I don't even know that he cares enough to even say he doesn't believe, right? Like, he just doesn't give a shit. He doesn't think about it.
Well, there could be no God because that God would be more powerful than him. So,
right.
And there is nothing more powerful than Donald Trump, other than his incontinent pad.
So, coincidentally, I was watching. I've been watching these. There's some really good documentaries on Netflix called Under the Turning Point series. One of them, a recent one, is on Vietnam. I watched that whole 5-part thing. Very fucking good. It cleared up pretty much every kind of gray area or mystified aspect of the Vietnam War that I mean, it is a very complex piece of history, and there's a lot of things to understand about it to even wrap your head around it at all. And I definitely didn't feel like I fully had a grasp of it until after watching this. Now I do. But then after that, one from last year is Turning Point, the Bomb and the Cold War. And it goes into literally the end of World War II, creation of the, of nuclear bombs, and how that basically set into motion, geopolitics from there on out, how things played out. And one of the things that I was like, oh, that's interesting to learn right now, is that I don't know if I fully realized that Iran was one of the countries that our CIA did a
CIA at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've been fucking with them for a long time. not to say that they're blameless in any regard for whatever various things that we might be able to talk about, but like, yeah, it's just man, we just can't stop fucking with people.
Yeah, we cannot leave well enough alone.
So, Dane, you're fading out for me. Does anyone else hear that?
Yeah, I caught that too.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
But now, how am I?
Puddle your mic
You're fine now.
Let me turn my volumes up.
Pump it.
Yeah, in the 1950s, Mossadegh was elected. If I remember correctly, Iran was mostly a democracy, and he was elected on a platform that we, the United States, considered to be socialist. So we got rid of him and replaced him with
that's not even accurate. What I learned was that they were not really socialist at all. They were it was more like what was it? Oh, so it was Great Britain basically went to Alan Dulles and said, hey, they're kind of getting in the way of us, being able to access our oil the way that we want to access. So like, let's just say they're communists or something. And that Alan Dulles was like, oh wait, with communists? Where?
Right.
Because
that's why I said we
Alan Dulles,
him.
Yeah, I think Alan Dulles probably should get a lot of blame that he doesn't get.
There's a good hardcore history on the Behind the Bastards on the Dulles brothers.
Yeah,
what a piece of shit, man. I mean, him and his brother too were basically the overt and covert arms of U.S. Foreign policy.
Yeah,
and it was not good.
No,
but
yeah. So that's referring to what you said before that. That's why I said he was elected on a platform that we defined as socialist.
True.
It wasn't actually socialist, but we identified it as that. So we overthrew his government, replaced him with the Shah, who was a dictator and a secular dictator. And then he got overthrown in 1979, I believe, by the current government,
right?
Which was a left-wing movement originally that got hijacked by religious fundamentalists and became the theocracy that runs the more or less theocracy that runs Iran right now. It's always more complicated than that, but
right.
Yeah.
So if you watched last night, you saw we kind of went through a quick timeline of what was at that time believed to have happened. Of course, Trump being the first source of anything happening at all, he claimed that it was a complete success, which you know how Trump says things. Everything is the biggest and the best.
Right.
But that does not seem to be the case, as right here we have where'd it go?
So it turns out when you're gonna, because we bombed United States bombed 3 of their test sites for nuclear enrichment in Iran. The thing to remember is that most countries that have any sort of fissile material lying around, when someone starts bombing the country, typically start to move that stuff somewhere that like is a little more secure, a little more out of the way, that isn't well documented, because it turns out people want to hit that stuff with bombs. And so it seems like Iran has moved their fissile material elsewhere so that when we bombed these places and did do a bunch of damage, we didn't really get rid of anything.
You what? Sorry. I didn't hear the last thing you said. You kind of cut out.
We didn't really get rid of any, like all of their nuclear stockpile, all of their uranium seems to be fine.
Right. Yeah. So that the thing is that well, first of all, thankfully, Iranian nuclear or U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites show no sign of widespread environmental impact, that's small
good.
favors. So far, any chemical and radioactive contamination seems confined to nuclear sites hit by U.S. bombs. But I mean, that's partly because one of them we just kind of biffed it. Yeah, and that was the main one, right? That the one that we apparently didn't
I
really
don't know.
I think I heard that it was the primary one that they were aiming for, and it was not successful to any great degree.
Well, it turns out that the military industrial complex sells these what they call precision bombs. That's kind of an oxymoron. Precision bombing is, we can get it within a kilometer.
This is via the the New York Times, so we're going to be shitting on shortly. But when it comes to basic factual reporting like this, I think they still do that. It's mainly their editorial and the things they choose to cover that's a problem.
I think that they broadly cover this in a passive voice, neutral to the government sort of standpoint.
The Israeli military, in initial analysis, believes the heavily fortified nuclear site at Fordo has sustained serious damage from the American strike, but has not been completely destroyed. The officials also said it appeared that Iran had moved equipment, including uranium, from the site. And if you're not aware, uranium is necessary for enriching in order to create a nuclear reaction. So the issue seems to be that they have nuclear sites. That's not in contest. That's not being contested. It's just a matter of what they're doing with them.
Right.
And based on our intelligence agencies and via the amazing and trustworthy Tulsi Gabbard, they weren't working on nukes, or they're not anywhere close to nukes or whatever. And that's been the case for quite some time. But for whatever reason, recently it seems like first, Israel said, "Hey, no, they got some nukes." Oh, also Trump, they tried to kill you a couple of times. We're not gonna back that up with anything. We're not gonna show any evidence of that or anything. But just trust us.
Dog.
They were trying to kill you, and hey, let's bomb them together, buddy. So,
and it seems like that the Trump administration has permanently rat fucked any peace process with Iran twice now.
No, Trump issued an ultimatum after attacking them, saying now is the time to make peace. And that's the way this always works, right?
Typically, how I make peace with people doesn't start with me bombing them.
Right.
Normally, I go, you want to get some coffee? Talk it over?
It's like walking up to somebody and kicking them in the dick and being like, "Hey, bud, let's be friends."
Yeah.
Right. If you're the mafioso, you show up to the bodega and you shoot the cat. And then you look at the owner and say, "Okay, we're friends now, right?"
It's a nice shop you got here. I hate to see anything happen to it.
Right, exactly. That's how this works.
Yeah. If you're a mafioso, which Trump is, just seems to be his MO. So this is a Wired article. What satellite images reveal about the U.S. bombing of Iran's nuclear sites? U.S. concentrated its attack on Fordo, an enrichment plant built hundreds of feet underground. Aerial photos give important clues about what damage the bunker buster bombs may have caused. Okay. Targeted 3 facilities central to the country's nuclear ambitions. The brunt of the bombing focused on Fordo, where I think I was mistaken. It was in Fordo that was the main one, where U.S. forces dropped a dozen GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators as part of its Midnight Hammer operation. These 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs are designed to penetrate as deep as 200 feet into the earth before detonating. The Fordo complex is approximately 260 feet underground. They're like, "Oh, you built bombs that go 200 feet underground? We'll just dig 260 feet underground."
Get fucked, nerd. Also, that bombing probably cost more than the entirety of U.S. student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is why, by the way, it's always worth reminding people that Iran is mostly mountains. Yeah. So if you put something under a mountain, there's no bunker buster that's going to get deep enough to hit it.
No, we invented buster bunkers to try and bomb bunkers in mountains in Afghanistan, and it was to middling success.
Yeah.
So let's see. That gap accounts for some of the uncertainty over exactly how much damage the Fordo site sustained. Imagine that. President Trump shared a post on his blah, 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 blah. Fordo is gone, and later said in a televised address that Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. His own military, however, was slightly more circumspect about the outcome in Sunday morning briefing. "It would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there," said General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "Satellite imagery can inherently only tell you so much about a structure that is situated so far below the surface, but before and after imagery is the best publicly available information on the bombing's impact." So, what we see are 6 craters, 2 clusters of 3, where there were 12 massive ordnance penetrators dropped. This is Jeff Lewis, director of East Asia Non-Proliferation Program. "The idea is that you hit the same spot over and over again to kind of dig down. The specific locations of those craters matter as well. Deputy Director, Fellow of the Center for Strategic and International Studies Project on Nuclear Issues, long title. While the entrance tunnels into the Fordo complex appear not to have been targeted, U.S. bombs fell on what were likely ventilation shafts based on satellite images of early construction of the site. The reason that you'd want to target a ventilation shaft is that it's more direct route to the more core components of the undergrounds. Are they trying to say that they're doing like the Death Star fucking trench run? Is that what they're like? No, you want to hit right in the vent, so it goes right down in there. And
but that's not like that's how physics works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Loose for Writing just pointed that out in chat a few moments ago. That's basically what they're doing.
Yeah. The only thing is, if that was the ventilation for early construction, there's a sizable chance that those early dig tunnels for ventilation aren't there anymore and were replaced with permanent HVAC systems that you would need to run that facility 24/7.
Yeah.
Versus what you would need for a construction site. Those are different types of ventilation. Thanks, Dad.
And it honestly would not surprise me if Star Wars is where we got the idea for bunker buster bombs.
It would not surprise me.
I mean, we've literally named a stupid fucking military project after Star Wars already. So,
yeah,
yep.
We talked about that one time. That old Reagan senility project.
Yeah.
So they're probably not trying to get all the way to the facility. I hope not. Not with that kind of logic. It's like cartoon logic almost. They're probably just trying to get close enough to it and crush it with a shockwave. If you send a big enough shockwave through that facility, it's going to kill people, break stuff, damage the integrity. Okay. Cue Limp Bizkit on break stuff. That's a joke. Don't cue Limp Bizkit.
No.
It's also notable what bombs didn't hit. The oblong white building in satellite images of Fordo is likely a key support infrastructure for the facility, potentially providing everything from air conditioning to backup power generation. The U.S. didn't even bother targeting it. Clearly indicates to me that they weren't trying to temporarily shut down the facility. We targeted these apparent ventilation shafts so that we could structurally destroy or do as much damage as we could, rather than temporarily try to shut down. I mean, yeah, honestly, I disagree with the bombing, but I mean, if you're gonna do it for the fucking long haul, right?
Then you do target the air conditioning, because if you're trying to destroy the facility in its entirety, if the air conditioning is still working, that means people down there can still breathe. That means other nuclear scientists that might still have been there are still alive and are a little extra motivated now to come up with ways to ruin your day.
So getting into the science of enriching uranium here a little bit, the facility is believed to be capable of enriching uranium to 60%. From there, it can be relatively quickly further enriched to 90%, and that's the level needed to construct nuclear weapons. Unclear how, ultimately, Iran's nuclear program has likely been damaged, Lewis says. It has not been eliminated. Good job, Trump. Just fucking great. I mean, whether it's his construction of his buildings, or it's his stakes, or his whatever the hell it is, it's always half-assed. It's always the shittiest version of anything.
Meanwhile, like about a decade ago, Israeli intelligence released a virus into the wild that sole purpose was to get onto an Iranian computer to cause one of their enrichment centers to spin incorrectly, to cause it to crash and fail. It was, I believe it was the Stuxnet virus that people were like, what the fuck does this even do? It was discovered by anti-malware experts going, what the fuck is this virus? What does it do? And it seems to have been an Israeli weapon that was designed to shut these down, because you can't bomb them very easily.
Mm-hmm. So the takeaway here is that Iran had only enriched uranium enough to provide themselves with a nuclear energy industry.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which
is not to say they wouldn't have gone farther, but that's where we are right now. So the mere presence of uranium does not a nuclear weapons program make.
No.
Does anybody know how long it takes to go? Like, let's say you've enriched uranium to 60%. How long would it take to then go to 90%, build a nuke, fire it off?
Well, if you listen to Benjamin Netanyahu, it's 3 months, as he's been warning us since the 1990s.
Yeah, right. Well, I was trying to get a more realistic, honest timeline of that, because that's exactly my point, is that they've been saying this shit for so long that that article just explained that Fordo's been there since, they've acknowledged it since 2009. It's been there since before that, presumably. Yeah. So why haven't they just done that then, right? Like it seems like they maybe either aren't capable or simply don't want to, go for the nuke option, because
if it's bad for their, if nothing else, it's bad for the countries that help finance them. Like, it's bad for Russia, it's bad for China, it's bad for them. Yes, they are run by religious weirdos, but a shooting war with, they're not.
And that, I was watching that Cold War documentary, realizing just like the degree to which, the second half of the 20th century, for the most part, was just defined by this fucking fear of mutually assured destruction. That it's almost kind of oddly racist in a way to be like, oh, these Iranians are going to get a nuke and blah, blah, blah. Because like the Russians didn't do it all that time. The Russians were fucking terrified, just like we were of wiping everything out. Nobody wanted to do it.
Yeah, it's the Israelis have them because we gave them to them under the table. And nuclear weapons are kind of a hassle to maintain, because it turns out 90% enriched uranium is not a stable thing, and to shield those missiles for that long and not have them leak goo it's not goo, but you know what I mean, leak radiation everywhere, is hard work, and it's expensive. Yeah, and requires not just the uranium. You need the right missiles, the right warhead, the right delivery system, targeting system, storage facility, launching thing. You don't want your gunnery crews to die of radiation poisoning, because you have to train those gunnery crews, and that takes time and money. Nuclear weapons are expensive and time consuming. And really, if you want to bomb a city, yes, the nuclear weapons are a terrifying thing, and do not get that wrong. But the firebombing of Tokyo killed more people than either nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And that was just...
But I want to point out that those nuclear bombs, the first atomic bombs, were nothing compared to thermonuclear bombs, which were developed after World War II. The serious business shit.
But we're not even...
civilization enders.
We're a whole step before that with the Iranian nuclear program, though.
Yeah.
True.
Just to put it in perspective, the explosive power of bombs is measured in what we call tons, so there's kilotons, megatons, etc. Right. And the entire explosive output of World War II combined, including Batman and Little Boy, was, I believe, 2 megatons.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Total. And we have bombs right now, even non-nuclear bombs.
Well, Batman,
Little Boy payload.
Little Boy was 15 megatons.
I thought it was kilotons.
Kilotons. Yeah, and Fat Man was 22. And then the first thermonuclear detonation test was, something like 22,000.
Right. So my point was, megatons are bigger than kilotons by an order of magnitude. So my point was, we have non-nuclear weapons right now, where a single bomb carries the entire explosive force of the entire Second World War. And we have nuclear weapons that are rated in 15 to 20 megatons, which would be thousands of times more powerful than every explosion detonated in the Second World War.
Yeah.
So that's why these weapons are absolutely horrifying.
Sorry, why do you think the Iran strike failed? Well, because so when I say it failed, I'm talking about in terms of what what Trump set it up as. Trump, being the first one to announce that anything had even happened, announced that it was a complete success. Everything was wiped out, completely dismantled their nuclear capabilities. And his own head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is saying that doesn't seem to be the case based on the Fordo. Was it Fordo?
And keep in mind, that's the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that he appointed after firing all of the Joint Chiefs and replacing them with yes men.
Mm-hmm. And also...
They damaged one of the, so 2 of the facilities do seem to be completely essentially neutralized. One of them doesn't seem to be completely. So.
Also,
Oh, go ahead.
You should assume Marco Rubio is lying about everything.
Right. I mean, this is a guy.
I don't know how many people watching this were around for the Iraq War in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But they're using the same playbook, and every word of what Rubio said is probably a lie.
It's straight out of the Iraq War playbook. So take it as seriously as that. As far as if Rubio is correct, if Rubio is 100% correct, if you take Trump out of the situation, it still makes sense to go to war with Iran. You, as the Secretary of State, and your coworker, the Secretary of Defense, need to have the president take that to Congress and declare war.
Yep.
Well, the interesting thing is that let's see what we got here. First of all, Trump administration says U.S. does not seek regime change.
That's going to change quickly.
Interesting. But then also,
here's a few hours later, and then
a few hours later.
Thank you, Bob.
Trump floats regime change.
There it is.
Yeah.
Get out of here, fucking! I'm not paying for you, asshole. I can't read you anymore. Damn it! All right. Gotta go to incognito.
Couldn't wait a day.
Right.
And then also, JD Vance says that U.S. has no interest in putting troops on the ground in Iran, and he's, doesn't lie. So
never. Well, JD Vance thinks that unlike the last quarter century of presidents, the president is now a smart guy. Never mind that of the last 25 years, a quarter of the presidents have been Donald Trump.
So imagine that some country came to us and was like, "Hey, we don't want you to do this on your own. We want to just kind of baby you and hold your hand along the way to enriching your uranium or whatever. We don't want you to actually enrich it yourself. So we're gonna basically give it to you." Do you think the U.S. would be cool with that? The U.S. would just go along with that? I mean, obviously, we wouldn't need, the situation wouldn't arise because we have fucking plenty of it. We do it all the time. But point being that, doesn't it seem kind of condescending as a sovereign nation to accept something like that?
So we actually had a deal to do something like that.
Right. Wait, was it Obama? It was Obama, right? Obama got out of that deal?
Obama had a deal with Iran ready to go.
And then Biden got out of the deal, right?
Who got out of the deal? No,
Biden?
try again. No.
It was Jimmy Carter?
No.
No, it was fucking Trump.
It was fucking Trump.
Obama. Oh.
Yeah, Obama got out of the Obama deal. No.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we literally were part of the Iran nuclear deal. Guess what that was about?
Yeah.
We were in that. We had that. That was a thing. And Trump did nothing but criticize and shit on it from the moment it was signed until he got into office. And then on day one, he said, "All right, we're out of this." So I mean, he's creating problems for himself. It's even if this was a case where we knew that okay, they actually are trying to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons or whatever, it would still be Trump's fault on a long enough timeline. Like
not even not even 10 years ago. In 2016, we had a deal. In 2017, the new president backed out of it. That same new president today is going after them because of the deal he backed out of.
Yep. And let's explore the Iranian motive here for a minute. Okay, the logic of Iran's position, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but this is their position. This is what they're probably thinking. They look around the world. Excuse me, there's traffic going by. They look around the world and they see that global South countries with nuclear weapons, such as Pakistan and North Korea, are not fucked with by the United States or Russia or China or any of the other imperial powers. And they've watched the dictatorships and the governments in Libya and Syria and Iraq all be convinced to give up their nuclear aspirations and that then get turned into parking lots and get taken over by theocracies that are worse than the one in Iran. So if you're Iran and you have the capability to produce a nuclear weapon, why wouldn't you?
But also,
if you want to protect your own sovereignty from, meddling by imperial powers.
I don't know the details of the Iran nuclear deal, but I'm confident that it did not make them completely stop enriching uranium, because as we looked at, if you go back on the stream and rewind and listen to us reading that article, enriching uranium, it's not like making a nuclear weapon is the sole purpose for doing that.
Hey, can I pull something up on screen? I just dropped a link in chat. I want to pull this up.
What's that?
I'm going to pop something up on screen.
Okay.
We do have details of the deal, because this is from the Obama White House archives.
Definitely not on the current version of the White House website, right?
Well, it's still on a .gov website for now, but we'll see how long that lasts. But here is what, in January 2016, here's where we stood. 25,000 tons of enriched uranium had been shipped out of the country. They dismantled 2/3 of their centrifuges, removed heavy water reactors and filled it with concrete, provided access to their nuclear facilities and supply chain. And they'd already done those steps before we had gotten to a final deal.
And that was a big thing, us being able to go.
Big deal.
You know?
And so it goes into all of the details. And this was, if Iran tries to build a bomb, how long would it take? Here's that 2 to 3 months we hear from Netanyahu.
Yeah.
In the state that Donald Trump has put us in right now.
By
2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
With the deal, all the pathways to bombs were blocked. So the reason that Iran could today, in theory, build a nuclear missile is because of Donald Trump. Solely and exclusively.
It's almost like Obama, in some ways, was in the most boring ways, really, in the most immediate, the most unhelpful domestically ways, immediately, pretty decent president.
And on the site, you can read the whole deal. So if I am wrong or missing something, I mean, you might need to sign up for free.
When it came to healthcare and you know, bailing out fucking banks and shit like that, no, he was not great. But
no, but
well, he was a normal
Democrat
imperial president, by which I mean he pursued U.S. imperial ambitions through soft imperialism, mostly through
except for the drone bombs.
Except for the drone bombs, right? But through tactics like developmental aid that has conditions on it, or the Iran nuclear deal, which had conditions on it regarding human rights and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue that those are good or bad things, but he pursued diplomacy in the way that the United States had basically pursued diplomacy under every president since the Cold War, including the Republicans. Mostly Republicans like Reagan did the same thing. And Trump is a massive deviation from that pattern. And that's why he's destabilizing everything, because suddenly the world doesn't know what to expect from the United States. Even the countries that were against us and our enemies kind of understood what we were doing and how they could respond to us. And now nobody knows what to do.
Think about it. It's actually becoming now the situation. The new status quo is almost like our historical, you know, or our the countries we have hostilities with, rather, probably feel more secure about what we're going to do than we have. Whereas our allies are like, what the fuck is happening? What are they going to do? But as it says right here, nuclear physicists, military officials, non-proliferation experts in more than 100 countries across the globe all voiced their support for the Iran nuclear deal because it is the best solution available to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon without taking military action. Trump exited that deal. And now here we are. We cannot let anybody fucking forget that. Don't ever, it doesn't matter. You get into a conversation about this, wherever this goes, maybe hopefully it doesn't go any further. Hopefully they don't retaliate. Hopefully we don't do any kind of engagement over there. Hopefully that's the case. But whatever the case,
here's part of the problem.
Fucking fact.
This little country right here wasn't supportive of the deal.
Oh, weird.
The country that started this battle.
Is it because they just wanted to like bomb them or what?
That seems to be the case.
Yeah.
Well, Israel's position, their claim is that Iran is funding Hezbollah and Hamas.
Is there evidence of that?
And there is, yeah.
There's evidence of that, yeah.
That's I don't know how strong the evidence is, but that's totally a plausible claim. I mean, we do that. Every country funds some terrorist organization somewhere.
For sure.
But Israel sees Iran as the biggest nation state obstacle to their ambitions of or I should say Netanyahu, sees that as the biggest obstacle to his ambition of the greater Israel project, which is Israel conquering the West Bank, Gaza, large parts of Syria, Lebanon,
Jordan,
and Jordan and Egypt to fulfill the historic, like the boundaries of the ancient Israelite kingdom, according to what archaeology tells us, basically. So,
there was a name for that kingdom at the time Christ was born. I don't know if you knew this. They called that territory something. Did you know that?
Well, there was no kingdom. It was an imperial province.
Right. Their province
were ruled by the Romans.
Yeah.
It was called Palestine.
It's called Palestine.
Yeah. But I think that's like a kind of a distraction. What the land was called is kind of a distraction.
I agree.
The point is that Netanyahu has imperialist ambitions and is a puppet of the United States. However much it seems the other way around, we have to remember that Israel is essentially a landlocked, unsinkable aircraft carrier from which the United States can launch its own military power into places like Iran, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Egypt, etc. And that's why we maintain it as blindly as we do.
Well, and also,
sorry, go ahead.
Part of our engagement with the Israeli government, and particularly their most reactionary elements, is the end times philosophy that we discussed on our October 8th, 2023 episode.
Mm-hmm.
Wherein a sect of American Christians that has become popular within the evangelical and right-wing Republican Party believes that in order for Jesus to return, there has to be a bunch of violence in the Holy Land. And they back Israel explicitly and exclusively to cause that event to happen.
Yeah, our current ambassador to Israel, Tom Huckabee, is a believer in this theology. He thinks that in order to effect the second coming, we must return every Jew in the world to the lands of historic Israel, and then Jesus will come back and slaughter all of them, or most of them, and the rest will convert to Christianity. And large numbers of government officials in the U.S., particularly those who are Republicans, genuinely believe in this theology, which is why they don't do long-term policy things like climate change or universal health care or caring about the human rights of Palestinians or anyone else in the world, because they literally think they are about to bring about the end of the world.
And it's also why that's why fucking white supremacists will champion Israel.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the white supremacist cause for Zionism is the death of all Jewish people.
So I've seen this playing before, and I don't know anything about it. Do you guys know anything about that?
Israel has funded Hamas. I don't know about Hezbollah.
What's the strategy with that crazy shit?
They did not. So the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, was, or I believe still has control of the West Bank, which is the other Palestinian territory in what we recognize as Israel today. They are a more secular, often accused of being socialist political party. And the Israeli government, particularly Benjamin Netanyahu, did not want them to be in power in Gaza. And so he funded Hamas as a counter to the PLO.
Huh. Mm-hmm. It was done to undermine the peace deal that Clinton reached with the PLO, because the PLO got closer than any other Palestinian organization to actual Palestinian statehood. Yeah, and Israel was kind of forced into that agreement by the Clinton administration. And at the time, the PLO was the governing body in both the West Bank and Gaza. Mm-hmm. And so Israel began funding Hamas to undermine the PLO because they wanted to scuttle the idea of Palestinian statehood. Right. That was the motive. That's great. There was a scandal at the time, and you can go look up the reporting on this, that Netanyahu was delivering literal suitcases of cash to Hamas.
Literally insanity, man. That's fucking crazy. Yeah. I heard, by the way, that maybe it was the first day that they had struck Iran or Israel that he was supposed to be in court that day.
That wouldn't surprise me.
But now let's look at this whole situation. Strait of Hormuz, which
Fill up
is
your gas tanks, kids.
Pretty big channel for oil delivery. And it's not that like we're gonna be running low on oil or anything, but basically, if anything disrupts any flow of oil anywhere in the world, that affects the prices of oil generally. So,
yeah, and the oil cartels love raising prices.
Right. So there might be a cushion here because Biden opened up what's called the strategic oil reserve of the United States. In other words, we have a huge stockpile of our own oil that we aren't using. And it's called the strategic reserve. So in case something like this happens,
right,
we can like soften the blow. And I don't know if Trump reversed that just because Biden did it, but Biden opened up the strategic oil reserve during his presidency as part of his climate initiative, where the logic was the first step to becoming energy independent on green technology is to get us off of foreign oil.
Right.
And we're going to have oil during the transition period. So he opened up the strategic oil reserves to make us less dependent on oil from the Middle East or Venezuela or any other part of the world that imports oil to us.
That sounds a lot like socialism, though.
So Biden opened that up, and it's possible that Trump closed it just because Biden opened it. I don't know. I haven't checked on that.
Yeah.
So there will be a cushion, but closing the Strait of Hormuz will fuck up the oil markets worldwide for the rest of the world, right? And will drive the price of oil up in the U.S. because of all the speculation on Wall Street around that. So that's why I said earlier, if you think the price of eggs is high now, just wait until you see the price of gas after this kicks off.
In a couple of weeks, it's not.
So there, as per Lucifer's comment, there was a collision of two tankers 5 or 6 days ago in the strait. And let's see.
I had nothing to do with this, though.
No,
that was just an accident.
It can't. I don't know. We'll see. Caught fires, blah blah blah. Electronic. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I mean, I guess if it's closed, then there won't be any collisions.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's a silver lining, guys.
And just so it's not clear to the audience, the Strait of Hormuz is the strait in the Persian Gulf through which all of the oil that is shipped out of Iraq and Iran and the rest of that region to the rest of the world has to go through the Strait of Hormuz to be shipped anywhere else in the world. So if Iran blockades that, they've effectively cut off the oil supply of a huge part of, particularly of the West. And that could lead to an actual shooting war between us and them. Because if we decide to go break that blockade, they're not going to get out of the way. We're going to have to force them to do it.
So yeah, I'll
so here's the baddest news is that Eurasia Group analysts said that the U.S. has amassed a massive military presence in the Gulf and surrounding region, and a move by Iran against the strait would almost certainly trigger a significant military response. That being from us.
Yeah.
Eurasia and Iran is likely to strike targets while its own exports remain intact, but added increased Iranian harassment of tanker traffic is likely in coming days. So Eurasia senior analyst told Axios in an email that a move to close Hormuz would be an effective declaration of war against the Gulf states and the U.S., and that Iran, in its weakened state, is unlikely to seek escalation of that kind at this time. Hopefully. Jesus Christ. Barrels per day of crude oil, condensate, and petroleum products. Let's see.
Because, yeah, that's the other thing is that, like, crude oil isn't just used for gasoline. It is used for a lot of stuff.
So much so.
Yeah.
Every day, like, basically you would have to, it would be a struggle to go through a day without using some product that isn't made with
Yeah.
It's the lubricant of civilization. And Every product every non-food product you buy from the store has something derived from petroleum in it.
Yeah.
Especially if it contains plastic.
Then I guess it's in food too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Microplastics. Yeah.
But yeah, like it is insane and that's why it's such a conundrum getting off oil. It's not because of the energy. It's because of everything else we use it for. We can make green energy easily, but we haven't invented a new kind of plastic.
Not that
will do what petroleum-derived plastic does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at scale, anyway.
Right. Yeah. Because there are bioplastics that exist today that are in use, but they're not. You can't make as much of it, and it's not the same.
So yeah.
Iran, it's so far away. But
Iran so far away. Couldn't get away.
Yeah.
That's going to be us if we get nuked. No.
Well, I live in a target city, so I'll be vaporized.
Well, just remember, like they
can enjoy
in the 50s, duck and cover. Get under your desk, you'll be all right.
I will say, if Iran is going to nuke anybody, it's going to be Israel.
I mean, I don't think it would be Iran. It would be China or Russia. I think that would probably be the ones doing it, right?
If it pops off into an actual world war, it would be China that nukes us. Iran doesn't have nukes, so they can't nuke anyone.
They can't nuke anyone. And if they did, they're dropping it on Tel Aviv.
It's logistically easier for them to attack Israel than the United States directly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so before we move on to the gross news, I had a cool thing I wanted to pop on you guys.
Ooh,
so I found this on wired.com. It is an article called "The Online Tools That Fueled No Kings and the Trump Resistance."
Nice.
And it goes into literally the creation of at least one of the organizations that popped up just in January, that was in part responsible for No Kings. And how they communicate and stuff like that. I will link this in the chat if anybody wants to check that out.
Good read.
But nonetheless, one of the first. So this person, where is it? So Jack and Fiona. These are not their real names. They were concerned about everything in January, as anybody sane would be. Searching on platforms like Reddit and Blue Sky, Fiona stumbled on Real Time Fascism, a website that uses AI, best use of AI, to trawl the internet for news articles featuring keywords linked to fascism. The tool analyzes those stories to produce a score for the threat posed by fascism in the U.S. at any given time. So go to that right here. Pretty neat tool. It's critical. So you can literally look at dates and how many matches for articles, mentioning fascism, right? Per day.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's concerning.
I'm curious why it dropped off.
How was this tool used?
This tool is
organizing.
This is initial thing for them to realize. It's not so like. I mean, part of the main thing of fascism is you can probably all realize that we've been frogs in boiling water to some degree, and it's like, oh shit, fascism is here on some level. When it's like you see little things here and there over time. It's like that video that we watched a while back from what's his name, the Crossing the Rubicon. Like at what point is it? And like this is just an objective tool basically that shows you this is this is what's going on. This is how
we're
much
on the other side of the Rubicon now.
It's just a tool for
the Innuendo Studios video.
And then right here, how much is powerful and continuing nationalism, disdain for recognition of human rights, identification of enemies, scapegoats as unifying cause. It's got these articles here. The supremacy of the military, rampant sexism. So, you can actually point to some evidence instead of just feel like you're going insane, because that's kind of, I think, part of what fascism, what this has done is made people question their own fucking reality to some degree.
I'm just worried that them talking about what they did in an article is advertising their tactics to the regime and therefore informing the regime.
They're not talking about it in a way that so one of the things they talk about is using specific apps, like communication apps, encrypted apps and stuff like that. So like they don't, there's broad conversations about stuff going on, organizing like on Discord and whatnot. But then, the smaller, the actual organizers of something will be on Signal or some other encrypted app. But yeah, there's that. Then there's also this Project 2025 tracker that shows, how they doing, how as far as their goals with Project 2025. Pretty good. They're doing pretty good, which is pretty bad.
Yeah, not great. But man, I was told that like that was not a real thing, and Donald Trump disavowed it. That was totally never going to happen by a bunch of Republicans who definitely believe that and aren't full of shit.
I was told he had no idea and had never heard of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't know what it is. Yeah.
I'm sure that they're either in denial or just lying.
So, it's got things that Project 2025 laid out as goals, and whether or not they've accomplished them and so on. It's pretty handy. Yeah.
The only thing I worry about with a site like this is it's good to have. It's a good resource. Do not read it all at once because it's depressing.
Yeah.
Like it makes you think that we're overwhelmed and it's already lost, even though like we're around the other side of the Rubicon. American democracy needs to be rebuilt from the ground up at this point. It is permanently fucked.
So rather than, I just want to point out that like rather than being concerned about, before having read the thing, Bob, that it's going to be something that can be used against them, which is, always possible. Anything that is a tool for or against fascism can be turned back against anti-fascists. But the point of this is to show that, like, if there's something you want to do, there's ways to do it. If you want to, like these people started out creating stickers. They've made 500 stickers, and they were QR codes that literally led to this this website. They just, it's not even their website, but they found it and they were like, you know what, we need more people to realize this, so we're going to make some QR code stickers, plant them all over the place, and that's how they started. And then they became, one of the groups that became responsible for No King stages by, getting involved and talking to people, making connections. And yeah, you got to be kind of smart about how you do that. You don't want to just believe everything everybody says as if,
yeah,
I think
it looks really decentralized, which is good. That's what we need.
That's exactly what this talks about. Is this? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, essentially talks about how that's exactly what we talked about like last week or whatever. That the big difference is that this is decentralized. It's not superficial. It's not, kind of lib fronted, right? Like there's people that are actually genuinely going, okay, this is real now. Whereas like at the first Trump administration, it was more like fear and concern over what could be, but nobody wanted to overreact at the same time. You know what I mean? So it was just like, this is not good. This could happen. And they were still able to, they still had plausible deniability to go, you're acting crazy. You're being crazy. You wokey or whatever they said back then. And now we can just go, no, look, it's right here. It's right here. You can't fucking gaslight me, bitch.
Yeah.
I also think that like one of the failures of the Democratic Party has also been a success of the No Kings movement is that, well, I think a lot of like local and state Democratic organizations have done a good job to promote the No Kings movement and get involved in it. The federal part, the National Party has not really tried to be a leader in resistance against Trump, and that has given space for there to become a decentralized movement that is much more entrenched. That I don't think that this administration is ready to try and handle. I don't think they know how to do it. They know how to bully libs. The media knows how to bully libs.
Yeah.
And when I say libs, I mean moderate Democrats and media personalities. I don't mean your next door neighbor who like calls themselves a liberal and generally votes Democratic. That person is more progressive on average than any Democrat in any position of power.
Yeah.
So when online people talk about liberals, like you really got to know who you're talking about because it's not your neighbor. Yeah, your neighbor identifies as a liberal, but they're further than the left than they know, because honestly, because we've both the right and the left have demonized the term liberal so much.
Well, I mean,
and there's been such an effort to reclaim it. Go ahead.
If you ask the average liberal Democrat voter, you know, do you think that do you believe in socialist healthcare? You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna be like, oh, you know, maybe they might say no, just because that you know, that scary word that the U.S. has successfully waged propaganda campaign against for, you know, nearly a century now, over a century.
Yeah.
But if you ask them, hey, you know, what about healthcare for all? You just phrasing it the right way.
Phrasing matters.
So it's a big thing.
But like, this is like the to bring it to the New York Times of it all. This is like you've got them doing interviews that are now being cited by like Fox News and shit. Where it's like, oh, there's no support for trans people. This is why the right is stripping away all the trans rights. And it's just like, well, when you actually look at the polling data, that's not true. And for those who are against trans rights, it's like the 83rd thing they care about.
Yeah.
Nobody voted for Donald Trump because he was going to, you know, make me wear a guy's swimsuit.
Yeah. And so much of online discourse, leftist discourse towards liberals has the tone of, have you heard of your Lord and Savior Vladimir Lenin?
Right.
Yeah.
Or the prophet Karl Marx.
Yeah, rather than saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could just go to any doctor you wanted and present a card out of your wallet and never have to pay a cent?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool? And
Wouldn't
people go,
that be cool?
yeah, that'd be really cool.
What if your employer couldn't just fire you for whatever, and they had to like pay you a living wage so you could pay your rent and pay your food bills and have money to live a life? What if you had paid sick days? That was a thing the government took care of. So your employer couldn't, you know, just like, oh, well, you know, I'm sorry, can't approve your days off.
Yeah.
You can't get your surgery now.
The success of the No Kings rally demonstrates a principle that one of my favorite content creators, Park Rose Permaculture, likes to talk about all the time, which is the problem is the solution. In other words, the fact that the Democratic Party politicians are easy to bully is both the problem and the solution. And the evidence of that is the sudden heel turn of Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
Who went literally overnight, from a bootlicker to a troll against the Trump administration. And he will easily flip back if the pressure lets up. But if we keep the pressure on him and others, they will start to fall in line, which is why there's now another No Kings day being planned right now.
Yeah, for the July 4th.
We'll be covering that for sure.
We will.
The best shining example, I think, of just like a politician, you know, he's got a swell of popular support for doing some evil shit, and then just like almost instantaneously, you know, public support turned on him, and it essentially killed him. It's Joe McCarthy, you know. Like that was, you know, once again, I was watching this documentary, and it goes into the details of that and how he's, you know, I mean, it's a very exhaustive fucking documentary. The bomb and the Cold War one is like 9 episodes, and each episode is like an hour at least. But yeah, it goes into McCarthyism and, you know, how he didn't actually find one communist, for one thing. But like there was the hearing that they had where he was because he went too far. If you remember, whenever we covered him, the thing he did, his fatal error, was he started accusing the army of having communists in it. And then they called him to a hearing to defend that, basically. And, you know, essentially it just took, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was like, have you no decency, sir? And everybody just fucking, you know, broke out cheering. And the next thing you know, he's died of alcoholism in his 40s, which is still crazy because like he looks like he's 50 plus at least back then. But anyway,
being evil is hard living. Speaking of being evil, do you know what's evil? Not liking this stream.
That's true. You should like this stream, and you should also subscribe to this channel because look, man, I'm coming up on 8K, pretty close, under 100. Woo! Let's get there.
Let's get it over the hill tonight. Do it.
I'll finally be enough, you know.
You'll be a real Dane.
But also subscribe to Bob of the Old Ways, who is linked below, as well as several other fine content creators. I mean, fine, like sexy, like
They really are. Well, I know Bob has a difference of opinion about one of those people on who's the sexiest.
I do?
Yeah, isn't there another Bob that is the inferior Bob?
Oh yeah, you're right. True.
Well, I mean,
thank you for reminding me.
Part of the Battle of the Bobs is going to be like a swimsuit, kind of pose off kind of thing. Prove it in all kinds of ways.
Well, I've heard from the Sith acolytes that run my studio that they are actually beginning production of the Trial of the Bobs.
Oh,
coming perhaps later this summer.
Perhaps we will have to actually focus some time on that. But basically, what we're waiting on, I think, is other Bob, who is preoccupied with his family or whatever.
Yeah, he's got some lollipops.
Likely story. Likely story. Yeah.
Kids, Bob. Well, that's gonna go in the competition, I think, or 4. I don't know. Who knows? All right. Speaking of kids, no, that's not.
no, Dane, no.
That would be
content warning. What we're talking about here is very serious stuff. It involves the abuse of children, and unfortunately, we live in a society where there are some people who perpetuate that. And we've noticed a pattern where those people tend to be the ones who protest the most about that topic before their own dark urges and crimes are discovered. And so we've got another Republican for you. This is South Carolina State Representative R.J. May, a Republican representative who has made so-called parents' rights a fixture of his platform. Moms for Liberty named him their legislator of the year in 2023.
Oof. Bad look. It is. I want to find this quote that I had pull up a little while ago, and then I think I accidentally closed it. But like, he was quoted as saying at one point, doing his grandstanding shit. Oh crap! Let me find it here. It was essentially something about we have to stop people from hurting kids or whatever, and it was just like, my God, man. And this news had dropped like a little over a week ago, and it's been around. But I listened to one of the inspiration podcasts of this podcast, QAnon Anonymous, today, and was hearing the details. And I don't even think I can say some of the details on YouTube.
No,
I will try to. I don't even know if I want to. But
they're bad.
They're bad. It is bad. So yeah, he was arrested for quite a lot of stuff. What we can do actually is we can look at the ironically the PDF for the 9-page indictment.
Yeah.
You want to?
Sure. I do love me some legal documents.
I actually got I'm signed into Adobe on here, and I don't want to give anything away.
Oh.
So the grand jury charged on about April 3rd, 2024, in the District of South Carolina, the defendant Robert John May III, aka, and this was the screen name he was using, Joe Biden 69,
with like 6 N's.
Like,
so it's Joe Biden 69.
Yeah, like 6 N's or whatever. AKA Eric Rentling, knowingly did distribute CP and materials that contained CP as defined in Title 18, blah, 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 that had been mailed, shipped, and transported in interstate and foreign commerce by any means. I'm sorry, that's still reading the law. So he sent a video ending in 69CO using the Kick application to another user of the Kick application, known to the grand jury. Let's see. It's just basically there's several charges here. I think there's 10 or something charges, each one carrying a potential 20-year.
Yeah, 5 to 20-year sentence.
It could be, in worst case scenario for this guy, best case scenario for society, he would get a 200-year sentence. But that's what I knew about, was that there was, CP material that he had or whatever. I didn't know anything about how much, but apparently it was quite a bit. And that's not even where it ends. He has repeatedly flown to Colombia to pay for underage sex workers, which, it's just fucking.
So I want to address a question we have from the audience. Lucifer asks, but to be clear, is he a drag queen or not? He is, in fact, not a drag queen.
Not a drag queen. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's 100% true. I've heard of it used by people that aren't, I assume, weren't doing that. But in this case,
I would just say Kik is an app that makes it easier to groom people than others. Like any social media app can be used to do that. Kik just takes the guardrails off.
Mm-hmm. Not that there's many left anymore, anyways.
Yeah.
The online social media guardrails are starting to look like the railings in Star Wars, non-existent.
Yeah. So, this is a guy like he said. He was awarded in 2023 by Moms for Liberty, which is one of the, or if not, it's the organization actually. We've talked about him before that has made their form of activism from the right is to get basically QAnon brained people to run for local office, school board, a city council, stuff like that, so that they can use their Q brains to create panic over trans people, queer people, trying to
people of color, books,
just anti-DEI, all that insanity. We've talked about the books before that they've had banned. There's been a lot of them. They are pretty much the primary organization that's driven a lot of this panic over the last few years.
Yeah. What's funny is, can I pull something up on screen? Can I share my screen quick?
What's that?
Can I share my screen quick? Yeah. All right. Can you just pop that down and I'll pop this up? So I did a stage. Oh.
I was sharing it for you. Go ahead.
All right. I got it. There we go. All right. So let me zoom in a little bit. There it is. The zoomies. So I searched for Mom for Liberty because I wanted to see on Google, because that's the one everyone uses, not the one I use, but Google is a necessary resource for this project. And I wanted to see if anybody talked about this in the last, here's 2 weeks, nothing.
No. No, they have removed from their website that they awarded him that award.
Right. The media has checked out on this guy, who is actually like a person in a position of authority using his, the resources of position to abuse children.
I mean, to be fair, you're looking for Moms for Liberty. I still would want to see more about that, but like he wasn't directly working for them or anything. So
if you search for both of them together, you will start to get some. But I want you to look at the sources. This is the Space Coast Rocket, Notes Carolina, LGBTQ Nation, a local channel. Like Daily Kos is the first name on here that's kind of a well-known media name. You're not seeing the Washington Post, the New York Times, the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune. You're not seeing any big name coverage of this. This is normal in our media system, how we cover right-wing sexual abusers of children. It's normal. The media doesn't care.
You mean like how we don't cover it, is what you're saying?
Yeah, as we don't. Because imagine, we'll just think of it this way. With all of the accusations of grooming and abuse of children by trans people that has been put out there, they've accused trans people of doing that. That is completely unprovable. That has never happened. If something did happen, they would make a media circus about it, right? It would never end. They've tried to make it up. It doesn't happen. But here, that sort of behavior happens all the time. And it's not even like it's not front, it makes the paper, but it's not front page news. It's not even news.
Yeah. It's become like this, like almost like school shootings.
Right.
It's like background radiation at this point, because you can literally, you can go back. I'm willing to make this claim. I've never actually done this, but I am willing to bet you can go back over any given year of the past 10 years or so, and every single day find a news headline somewhere in some local news outlet about a local conservative Republican being busted for child abuse or child SA or CP.
Even if you can't find one for every literal day, there's a long enough list of like pastors and stuff like that have been that you can place one on every. You can have an Advent calendar for the whole fucking year. $4.99 from Ignister Zone. Ignister Zone, yeah. MAGA. We are protecting kids from pedos unless they are pastors, cops, or creepy uncles, or just us.
Just conservative politicians in general, right?
It raises the question. Right. You know, it's kind of it's not something that can be answered easily, but I mean, why does conservatism and MAGA in particular draw?
I have to step away for a moment.
You know, or predators in general, whether it's grifters of some kind or whatever it is, it's just it's all built on grift, I guess, is the reason, right? Like,
it's built on hierarchy, on the unquestioning acceptance and fetishization of hierarchical power. Right? They believe in a patriarchal social system where the man at the top sets the rules. So anything he decides is okay is okay.
By the way, thank you for the $4.99. Appreciate that. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And the unavoidable, inevitable consequence of that political philosophy is child abuse of various kinds, because they are lower in the hierarchy, they have less power, and therefore they are entitled to less protection and less of a voice. Conservatism inevitably leads to this stuff. There's no way it can't.
I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah, but at the same time, that's not really the end of the story there. Like there are I mean, for one thing, Wall Street Journal is owned by Jeff Bezos. That's probably a good indicator why they aren't publishing a whole lot of hypercritical shit about Trump right now, and haven't been. I mean, they'll post some critical stuff of him, I think. I haven't really looked at him lately, but I mean, I'm sorry, not Wall Street. I'm talking about meant the Washington Post. Yeah, that's what
well, this is what I meant when I said that this has become like the background radiation in our politics. Like we're not going to see national news stories, national scandals, because it is so commonplace that the big national media just doesn't consider it worthwhile anymore. Because it's so common, it's not newsworthy. So you have to rely on alternative media and local media.
Who has been opposed to such a specific thing that there's no evidence of any harm being done. I mean, like, if there were drag queens, if there were trans people literally going after children and trying to, there would be videos about it on YouTube. They would be constantly talking about it. There would be 100,000 videos every single time somebody was caught. And I mean, I'm not saying it never ever happens. Large enough sample of any population samples, you're going to find an example of anything. But it doesn't happen to the degree that they've literally fucking created this forced adversity about. Got it in there.
Yeah, I was going to say they do make videos about it all the time. They just don't talk about real cases. They talk about something like a drag queen story hour and then pretend that is grooming children or something. Meanwhile, the pastor who's actually grooming children is the one leading the protest outside the drag queen story hour.
Here we go. This is a pretty good little. I'll download this so we can look at it really closely. It's worth mentioning that right before all this geopolitical stuff popped off, as Elon Musk reminded us, Trump was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for a decade. He was, and
that points to another reason why the media doesn't cover this very much. It's because people like Epstein implicated a lot of people from all political persuasions in the upper class of our society. So not everyone who was on Epstein's plane went to the island, but that doesn't matter. They were on Epstein's plane. And now that we know what Epstein did, any association with that guy is going to be radioactive. And a lot of people who run the media were on Epstein's plane for what were probably completely innocent reasons, because the guy was a billionaire and he hobnobbed with scientists and intellectuals all the time. They liked getting his money, going to his parties. But he accomplished his goal. He sullied the reputation of everyone who ever associated with him. So they're not going to report a story that could potentially lead back to them.
So, I mean, I have not personally verified every one of these, but just kind of glancing at it, I see several that I recognize as being accurate. It's a lot, you know, and there have been Democrats that have done shit too, of course. It is not nearly even remotely comparable in terms of just the number of incidents or cases.
Yeah. And here's the difference between liberals / leftists and conservatives who get caught doing this sort of thing. When a liberal or a leftist gets caught doing this sort of thing, the rest of the liberal and leftist community is like, hey, fuck that guy. Bury him in the basement under the prison. And the right circles the wagon and protects the guy and claims he's being lied about. And, you know,
I mean, they fucking, you know, the Democrats, you know, shunned, what was his name?
Al Franken.
Stuart Smalley, yeah.
Yeah. Who didn't even touch the person. Like, he just mimicked touching someone inappropriately, and that was enough.
But there was a woman that was sleeping, and I'm not saying this is good, but like, there's a woman that was sleeping, I think she was a journalist, and he was on a plane with her, I believe, or something like that, and he took a picture doing this over her boobs, not touching him, or something like that, and that, you know, now, and we lost a pretty good senator because of that. You know, I really don't agree with that, to be honest, as a consequence for him, especially whenever this is the opposition. But yeah, over and over again, over and over. I was looking for those mugshots you talked about, Reggie. I don't see it.
So RXNV, I think you're missing the point that I was making earlier. This stuff gets reported in the local outlets and the alternative outlets all the time. And it will, regardless of how heavy of a news week it is nationally, it's never going to be reported at the national level because it is so commonplace that national news outlets think it is not worth reporting on. The more common something becomes, the less newsworthy it is. It doesn't matter if it's horrible or not. Just the fact that it happens all the time means it is not newsworthy by definition.
And
so you have to look to local outlets.
I don't find it weird because, for one thing, that is not a legitimate way to take down potential or actual predators. It is entertaining. I admit to having a short period a few years ago, whenever I was watching some videos about it on YouTube, and was like, "Oh, that's pretty fun." But it really is.
Chris Hansen. We've all watched Chris Hansen and gotten a chuckle out of it.
Sure. I was talking about, like, there's some of the unknowns. There's like plenty of YouTube channels where these guys do this shit, and you know they seem to be doing, for the most part, they you know, like, for example, I remember one guy that he would do the texts. He would create an account of some underage girl or whatever, and then he would, you know, start messaging with some dude, and then he would have that dude meet him at Walmart or something like that, and then that guy would show up instead. And you know, this guy said the guy, the YouTube channel owner, said he was a dad and he was just doing this to protect his kids and people like his kids. And it's like, there maybe, I'm sure some of them are doing it from noble intentions. They're not doing it to hide their own fucking bullshit, but that also does happen a lot. There was one of these YouTubers that a few years ago had been busted for something like that. That was somebody that hunted, you know, pedos, and turns out he was one of them. You know, and it just, for one thing, if you do something like that and you set somebody up and you catch them in the act, and you go, aha, I got you on video and I got you on, you know, right here, you're texting saying you're going to do stuff. Okay, but then you can't do anything and that person goes free. And if nothing else, they're going to be more, probably be more careful about, you know, the praying that they're doing. and they might, become better at it and getting away at, you know what I mean? Rather than, I hate to say it, but in these cases, you do need to let law enforcement play these out, these investigations out.
That's what I was going to point out. Like, the reason that so many of these guys have right-leaning views is because they don't believe in due process.
Yeah.
They are vigilantes, essentially. And they are it's not a coincidence they do this, because they would do the same thing to so-called illegal immigrants, right? They don't believe people are entitled to a trial or evidence or anything like that. They just believe in the power and justice of the bullet. That's it.
Yeah, and like, the crazy thing about QAnon or whatever being like, oh, they're the Democrats, was like, nobody who's sane fucking thinks that people that harm children is a good thing. Somehow they've managed to convince a lot of idiots that there's a whole side of the political spectrum that's just like, yeah, we love fucking hurting kids or whatever. But yeah, and that just shows how demented it is. And in a lot of cases, I think that people that are so focused on that being, everybody that they being that there's their opponent or whatever, is they're probably, because they're pieces of shit. And maybe they're not people that do CP or harm children, but in some level they're probably just a amoral fucking scumbag piece of shit that has no real, contributes nothing to society. And that's the lowest thing that everybody generally agrees on is the worst kind of person. And if you call somebody that, then at least you're not that, and you can feel that good about yourself. You know what I mean?
Right. And the fact that it muddles cases is the point. That is what it's intended to do, because the goal is to undermine liberal institutions and make the scarlet letter and witch hunts the instrument of community justice, so that they can falsely accuse queer people. They want to establish a cultural precedent wherein simply being accused of this by a content creator is enough to get you killed or erased from society. You don't need due process to do it. That's why this kind of content undermines cases. That's what they want to do.
Do you mean the other way around, Lucifer? Is that? Imagine if there was as much. I'm not sure.
Is there zeal for stopping rape? I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I wish there. I mean, I don't think there's enough zeal for stopping either one of them. Not legitimate zeal for stopping the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's probably more. I think probably less zeal for stopping rape than there is stopping CP, but
yeah,
I think a lot of the zeal for stopping CP is become weaponized and propagandized against people who have nothing to do with it on the behalf of people who are invested in doing it. And those same people are also big grape enthusiasts.
Yeah, and both are consequences of their hierarchical belief system. They believe in natural hierarchies. Men, cis men, are at the top of the natural hierarchy, and everyone else is underneath them. And that means that the guy at the top is allowed to do whatever he wants to the people under him, which is why they don't actually have a moral objection to CP or CSA. What they object to is people being allowed to express a sexuality outside of that hierarchy.
I mean, you're RX, you're right. And in fact, QAnon made most of their progress as far as growing their cult in the summer of 2020, when everybody was, locked down. A lot of, people, including libs, wine moms and shit, that were just, stuck on the internet, on their feeds. And then they start seeing Save the Children. I mean, hey, who doesn't want to save children? It was an organization. I guess they still exist to some degree. I don't know if they've changed their name or what, but there was a Save the Children movement, a legitimate one, happened that summer.
Yeah.
And that got just kind of co-opted by QAnon. And they couldn't even use their, legit Save the Children hashtag anymore because it had been.
Yeah.
And
Save the Children is an actual international nonprofit that I used to do fundraising for. And what they do is basically what the Red Cross does, but their selling point is they are a secular organization, so they can get into places that the Red Cross isn't allowed, like Muslim countries, because the Red Cross is nominally anyway, on the surface, a religious Christian organization. So there are some countries who don't want Christians coming into their country to missionize people. So Save the Children, their selling point was, we can go where the Red Cross can't get to.
Right.
And we can help out children who are being exploited in the Muslim world or the Buddhist world or whatever, basically all over the world. And then QAnon came along and started saying Save the Children. And now every time somebody does a Google search for Save the Children, they find QAnon bullshit instead of an organization that was doing real good for people in the world.
Oh, look what we found here. Florida Baptist Church employee and Christian Academy teacher Joshua Dice has been arrested for soliciting a child online and traveling to do that.
Do you know
Second, from the same school charged with that type of thing.
Do you want to know who the real threat in domestic violence is, compared to, political assassinations and, all of these predators being arrested in the Republican Party and all of the terrorism going on in the country with ICE running around kidnapping people? Wonder who the most violent domestic terror threat in the United States is? It's trans people.
Yeah, true.
Donald
True.
Trump Jr. said this on Monday, June 16th. So right after we were on last weekend, right after a literal assassination of a Democratic politician and her husband, and an attempted assassination of another Democratic politician.
Almost as if he said that because of that.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Do you know
the
how many
timing is suspicious?
Is a little suspicious, right? Like what it is the playbook now. It is like, oh, a bad thing happens. Can we blame Iran or Hamas, or can we hurt immigrants more, or can we call trans people violent? That's the playbook. And there is no pushback on that. That's just accepted normal. Like we've already seen CNN and some other major news outlets pretty much just like bust out the old Iraq war headlines for the activities in Iran yesterday. Just like it was 2004.
Yep. They're talking about sleeper cells already, non-existent sleeper cells.
Right.
Things never actually existed in the United States. There's no evidence that such a thing was ever happening. But suddenly they're all over the place.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Just like they were suddenly like after 9/11, right? To justify the Iraq war.
I want everyone to look under their seat right now. You get a sleeper cell, and you get a sleeper cell, and everybody gets a sleeper cell. Pay the taxes on it.
So this is a article on The Conversation. Antagonism to transgender rights is tied to the authoritarian desire for social conformity, not just partisan affiliation.
Yeah.
It's the single most radicalizing kind of on-ramp. That's what it is. It's just an on-ramp for radicalizing to the far right. And it's because it's it's the newest form of civil rights that's become a mainstream topic of discourse. When you think about it, think about this shit. 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago, 11 years ago, you remember the Target bathroom issue, right?
Yeah.
Public support for that, for bathrooms, just like who cares, was overwhelmingly in favor of trans people. That's how far they've been very fucking successful with this shit in the last decade. It's crazy to think that for better part of
10 years.
It was just frustrating.
It's so frustrating because like you'll have our Quisling of the week. At the drop.
I was going to ask, yeah.
Who is our Quisling of the week?
Sarah McBride.
Oh, who's that? I don't know.
She is a Democratic congresswoman and a traitor.
I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe she is the first trans woman, if not the first trans person elected to Congress.
Yep.
Oh.
And she said some pretty dumb shit on Ezra Klein's podcast this week.
Yep, Ezra Klein, I believe, noted piece of shit.
So that's here we go. Okay, Sarah McBride on why the left lost trans rights. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And this is just New York Times talking points about like how we've pushed too hard, how Democrats have pushed too hard, even though Democrats haven't pushed at all. They haven't. They stopped pushing. They were accused of pushing, and they're like, "Oh, we're pushing too hard. We should stop pushing." And they never pushed in the first place.
Of course.
Oh my God! Shut the fuck up.
She's full on fucking MAGA chud now, dude. I mean, even if she doesn't claim it, she is.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and on the same show, they had a dude on that. So that's like a show that's supposed to be like the View, I guess,
Sure.
kind of the same format. It's a bunch of women talking about something. And they had a male guest on who is an employee of the parent podcast
Sure.
that hosts the show that Anna Kasparian's on. And he threw a tampon at Anna Kasparian on camera because he felt she was being too hysterical about something.
So bro just has a tampon lying around to just throw at a woman?
Had one in his pocket, and he,
How did she react to that?
Conservative men are not
she
okay.
Didn't. As far as I can tell, she didn't. But
I want to point out something that because I didn't know about the Sarah McBride thing, and I just Googled. So first I just typed her name in Google. I want to point out some of the common searches here. Has Sarah McBride had surgery? Childhood pictures.
Yep.
Which kind of just shows the weird, bizarre fascination that I think, and probably most of these are just conservatives that, like, why do you want to know that?
I think everyone who's in this chat regularly for never asking me that, so I don't have to ban you.
For what now?
For asking if I've had surgery.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that would be. I mean,
I wouldn't say nothing. I would just ban you. Bye. Yeah. You wouldn't just bye.
But then I added does Sarah McBride have a beard?
Yeah.
The auto completes that comes up. So
a lot of cis women have beards too.
Wired.com does their autocomplete YouTube videos, but if you're ever just kind of bored and want to find out generally what people might be interested in about a topic, just do some autocomplete searches.
Yeah, autocomplete searches are very fascinating. You learn a lot about people.
It seems like AI has not completely fucked that yet. So
yeah. So with regard to Sarah McBride, there is a good faith reading of what she said.
Yes.
And it would be, and I think this is the point she was probably trying to make, but the way she said it was very unfortunate. But I think she was trying to say the Democratic Party needs to do a better job communicating why trans rights is important to people who are not on board yet. Like that we are.
No.
There's a lot of people out there who are on the issue of trans rights are still kindergartners.
Right.
And she thinks the Democratic Party is talking about trans rights like they're all collegiate grad students, which I disagree with.
Yeah.
The party's not doing that. No. But what she said that in the context of claiming that we lost the 2024 election because we went too hard on trans rights.
And we didn't.
That's not why.
Yeah, and we didn't.
I think if we did, if the Democrats if the Harrison Walz campaign literally campaigned on, look what Tim Walz has done in Minnesota. Look how that's improved education outcomes. Look how that's improved mental health. We can do that for the country. We can rebuild our education system in this model of inclusion and diversity and funding our education as a counter to their indoctrinating our kids. Yeah, I think they stood a better chance.
Mm-hmm.
What's the trans equivalent of tap dancing?
Tap dancing.
Oh, well, I mean, because that's I think in relation to African American kind of.
Oh,
so what would the equivalent, I guess, be like a?
I would have to know what. I don't know enough about.
Don't you know
African American slang and culture to know what that means?
It's up to you to know this.
Yeah,
Speaking of which, I do have an article that I'd found on
I'm gonna
Wired.
think about that for a minute, Sketchy. Let me think about that and ask me again next week because I wanna think about that. That's a very interesting question, and I don't have a good answer, and I want one.
I have something I want to propose to you. I probably should just should have sent you this before the stream, but I didn't know if we were going to talk about it. But here we are, so we're going to talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
This is a Wired article, kind of a profile on someone from June 16th, called "This Historian Has Seen the Future of Trans Healthcare." Jules Gill Peterson. Have you heard her?
No.
Nope.
Doesn't want to fight for trans joy. She wants to fight for what trans people really need: resources, hormones, and surgery. Her latest arena, the U.S. Supreme Court. And, you know, and that's, I don't feel like that's too controversial or anything that, you know, but like, I'm just curious what y'all's take is on this, that she seems to, or she straight up says, focusing on, you know, trans joy and like, basically she doesn't even like the term gender affirming care. She likes to talk about things as what they are, you know, puberty blockers, hormones, surgery, because in a way that she feels like that, you know, kind of disconnects people from the reality. And nonetheless,
so
she's trans. She's.
I would like to read.
We should do both.
Yeah,
we should do. Yeah, I think. Oh, that's a complicated nugget. Not having read it, so let me start by saying that I think she's coming from a good place. I think that a lot of well-meaning allies and less than well-meaning people have focused on the like internal journey of discovery that trans people go on.
Yeah,
when they realize
like
they are
joy
trans.
thing is like a intra-community thing, right? Like it's within the community, or more like the queer community to say, you know, to kind of term. Whereas like, that's mistaken.
Yes,
I think her point is that joy is not a policy.
Yeah, joy is. Yeah, I think
that to affect trans rights, we have to focus on policy.
Let me
material analysis.
Yeah, go ahead and read some of it. I would like to. Yeah, go for it.
She doesn't personally love the term gender affirming care, as she finds the neologism to be too euphemistic. She prefers instead to speak plainly about what's actually at stake: hormones and surgery, not something abstract or intangible like affirmation or validation. She's similarly specific when she explains why she's in Thailand, which is where she's living now, I guess. She's recovering from, her term, her words, sex change surgery, a vaginoplasty to be exact, one that has neither affirmed her gender nor even confirmed it. Her linguistic tastes are not merely a matter of aesthetics, but a choice that reflects her politics, which prioritizes addressing and meeting trans people's material needs, especially in this moment when we're increasingly under attack. She says, we don't need any more disgusting trans joy. I don't know why it's disgusting. We don't need any more gender euphoria. Let's just get rid of all that and spend our time delivering real things that matter to people, like things like hormone and sex changes and surgeries.
So, okay. So
hot takes.
Yes. Okay. So I agree with her. Like when I started hormone therapy, I didn't ask for gender affirming care. I asked for fucking hormone therapy. Because that's what I wanted. Yeah. And I do think that euphemism is not necessarily helpful. I think she's right there. And I think saying I want hormone replacement therapy, let me guide my care better and let me establish my goals more clearly than, I want gender affirming care. It's like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, I don't know.
It's a decent way to look at it there.
Yeah, that I think that's what she's going for. I do think that but my point is agreement with her. So I agree with her on the terms we should use. We should move away from these euphemisms. Because a lot of them have been co-opted or weaponized against us. But also I think that we should just use the medically accurate terms for what we're doing. Though I think the sex change surgery thing, I'm not 100%, but I'm also not an expert in that area. So I think responsible people can disagree on that. That's fine. Whatever. I don't have a strong opinion on that one way or the other. I think with the gender euphoria and the trans joy thing, I think at this moment in time, I think the expression of trans joy as an act of resistance is important. I think that we are in a situation where our government has adopted a genocidal policy towards trans people.
And it is important to remind trans people that they, that this to keep going.
Right. Know? And expressing at the very worst, if you're a trans person, you're in a bad way, and you think you're going to be killed by this administration, which is a possibility. I don't know how much of one, but it's certainly on the table.
It's non-zero, and that's
it's not. It's above 20%. Having trans joy, living and enjoying your life in their face, is an act of resistance, and at the worst, it's dying loudly. It's making them watch you do it while they try and end your life, and make them eat it. Don't die quietly.
If I may, I think that the thing that she's missing is the nuance that's missing here is it matters what context you're saying things. Right, like who you're talking to is really what the difference is.
Also, that was going to be my point too.
Yeah,
you're not going to get very far by trying to lobby the government for trans joy or anything.
Right. Yeah, I think she's right. Like trans joy is not a policy goal. That is a personal act.
That
is worth undertaking, but
I wonder.
Not a policy goal.
That's why I wonder whether the problem here is the article's framing.
Yeah, I think so.
Of this interview,
so the writer says us at one point, at least one point that I've seen so far. So I think that the writer is also trans.
Yeah,
I don't know. Not to say that.
Just in the segment that you read, though, I detected a hint of resentment in the author's framing. It could just be my perception, but I think that there's a category happening here that the article's implying. And maybe the article's correct, I don't know, but it's implying that this person thinks the trans rights movement should never talk about joy or euphoria or anything like that and only focus on achieving policy goals. But if she's only talking about in the arena of policy and law, then it's appropriate to say we shouldn't be talking about joy
or
anything, because that's not a legal term. But like medical terms and legal terms mean things. And I mean, I think so. The important thing is we should do both, right? It's important to normalize the existence and validity of trans identities.
Yeah.
And that is done through celebrations of joy and pride, etc., while at the same time fighting for all of the concrete policy goals.
I think
as someone who is not a fan of platitudes in the sense that they can often placate people, and much like we were talking about the first Trump administration and the resistance movement to that, and the tweets and everything, the rogue government agencies and stuff like that made people feel like, oh well, people are doing stuff. I don't really need to do anything.
Right.
It's false comfort in some cases.
Yeah.
So I get it in that regard.
I think the only thing here that really raises my bad actor hackles is dismissing gender euphoria. Because it's a term you don't hear outside of trans people. Like I don't even think that trans people who discuss what trans rights should be and trans policy use that term in any policy related discussion. It's very much an internal community term, and it's one that people like Brianna Wu and other trans medicalists taught because to them there's either gender dysphoria or a neutral state when you have transitioned and are receiving hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess that's kind of what raised a orange flag for me while reading it too.
Yeah, that's I've got a yellow flag raised on it. I'm like, hold on, that's very.
But because I would recommend reading it. She talks about her heroes of being entertainer and World War II veteran Christine Jorgensen. Was famously cornered into becoming a public figure after the New York Daily News made tabloid fodder out of her early 50s sojourn to Copenhagen to get surgery.
Yep.
Janet Mock, I don't know who these people are, but she says these are her heroes. So I think what I get, is it wrong to say that you need the medical foundation? Like if you need medical treatment, hormones, those types of things, then that should be the foundation on which you build everything else.
So there is a certain amount of now I've got to get into the weeds on this. Okay, so how familiar are you with trans medicalism?
I know what it is. Yes.
Okay, so this is why I bring up Brianna Wood, because in her opinion, if you have not done all of the steps, you're not trans.
Right.
That's the broad trans medicalist. If I'm summarizing it very quickly, that you have to do the hormones and the surgery and all of that to be trans.
And that's why the people like her align so much with the right these days, because they treat it as You know, I don't understand not, you know, wanting to get the surgeries and stuff. So I just dismiss that as being like a transgender type of thing.
But that is a point of incredible privilege to be able to do all of that.
Yeah.
Like, especially because a lot of insurance doesn't cover it.
Right. She's addressing that. But like that's what she's saying is should be the focus, is so that anybody that needs it should be able to get it, right?
I think that's one reading of what she's saying, but I want to discuss the totality of it, because I think that a lot of people don't know some of these inside things that, like, okay, it's worth having the broad education. I don't think she's necessarily wrong. I don't know that I agree with her on everything, but that's fine. I think as far as like using the medical terminology for when people get these procedures and these medications, yes, we should call them what they are. And we should discuss why we take them. That's a good thing we should do as a goal. I think the other part of like the gender euphoria thing is that that's such an inside community term for two very specific things that, like, I'm just like, well, why target that? Like, why say that's a problem? Because no one is putting policy articles about how we should try and encourage gender euphoria, even though I think gender euphoria is great. I think it leans into that transmedicalization because, for instance, I would say that before I began my transition, I didn't have gender dysphoria as much as gender apathy. I'm a guy and I don't care about that. I have no attachment to my masculinity. I have no interest in doing guy things. There wasn't dysphoria per se, but there was an apathy where I very much experience gender euphoria now that I am in my transition. And even when I have dude days as a gender fluid person, I have my dude days, and I love my dude days because it gives me an outlet. Like, now I enjoy when I'm feeling masculine to be masculine. It's great. I love it. I would never advise or make policy on that. But I also, if I was writing an article about how we should talk about trans topics, I don't think I would bring gender euphoria into the conversation at all, because that's a internal experience. It's not even like a mental health experience in any way. Well,
I think I'd like, if you want, then, you know, I'd like for you to read it, and we can maybe do a part two on this next week.
I would love to read it and go in depth on it, because I think there's some interesting stuff here, and I want to take it apart.
I'm reminded of a conversation I saw on the Majority Report a couple months ago about a case going before the Supreme Court. It may have been the Scarametti case, I don't know, but there was some case involving trans rights where the pro-rights argument was being made, and the person being interviewed said the court agreed with this. So I don't think it was the Scarametti case, but it involved trans people dressing in the clothes of their gender identity in the workplace. And the argument that was made that the court, or at least a justice on the court, agreed with, is that it's a civil rights issue in the sense that a cis man cannot be fired for wearing a dress to work if the dress code of the company allows that to happen.
Right.
So if you can't fire a cis man for wearing a dress at work, you shouldn't be allowed to fire a trans woman for wearing a dress at work just because you don't recognize her identity as a woman.
Right.
And so maybe this person in this article is kind of making the same argument with regard to medical things. Like a lot of trans medical treatments, like hormone replacement therapy, have uses outside of trans healthcare. And if you cannot legally deny those medicines and those procedures to non-trans people on the basis of their gender identity, then you shouldn't be able to deny them to trans people on the basis of their identity. So it's taking the identity out of the question and just making it a question of equality and civil rights.
Right. Well, this is what a lot of the anti-trans bills, when it comes to hormone replacement therapy bans, do, is explicitly exclude, if you're a cis child, you can get puberty blockers, you can get hormone replacement therapy if you need it for something. But if you're a trans kid and you need it for something, you can't. And Dane, I don't want you to feel like I was attacking you or disagreeing with you. There's just, it's a lot of...
No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't, All right, we're good.
Yeah. I did want to, never mind. Oh, well, it's fine. I don't need to say that. It was about the previous subject, but I don't want to mix these two subjects up at all.
Sure.
So, yeah. All right. That's about all we got for today, unless you guys have anything else.
I have a fun thing.
You have a what?
I have a fun thing about the history of the show and the history of moral panics.
Uh-huh.
So this week, let me pop this bad boy up. Oh, I don't want to start that yet. So this week was we saw it. It's on screen now.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1953, this week, this comic came out that was initially blocked by the Comics Code Authority for this panel depicting a black man. And this is one of the things we talked about in our first episode, our second episode on the Comics Code. Our first episode was on the Video Nasties with Ryan. And this is brought to you by our Lord and Savior, Editor-in-Chief of EC Comics, Bill Gaines. Praise Bill. And I want to just pop over to the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, where you can actually read this whole comic. I'll put the link in chat.
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
And this comic is about a person visiting a planet to see if this group of aliens that are robot life forms are willing to are able to join or evolved enough to join the galactic community. And the guy notices.
What if there's some orange ones and blue ones or something, right?
There's these orange ones that he's talking to, but in the background, there's these blue ones. And he's taken around by the orange ones. And you see in the comic, you can't see his face. He's got his little space helmet on there.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, well, you got the orange bus stop and the blue bus stop. And then he talks to some of the blue ones, and they're all made to work, and they're the lower life forms. And it goes on, and he takes off to space and tells them they're not ready yet. And under the space helmet is a black man.
No,
and
this was the 50s, right?
This was 1953. This week.
Wow.
And so I recommend everyone in chat, everyone who watches this after the fact, check out the link and read this comic. Because it is a great piece of like 50s sci-fi art. The art is, I love the art. I love the style.
Meta history of it is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Like, so when you think about what was going on in the 50s for black people, wasn't good.
No.
We're still under Jim Crow, and this is a very hopeful, optimistic comic that says, look, maybe we can overcome this petty bullshit, and then even go on to inspire others to do the same. And the Comics Code did not want to allow this to be published.
Right. And this was the panel.
That was the one. They wanted it changed. They just wanted to change it to a white guy.
Yeah, they didn't want it to be a black guy. That's what the Comics Code had a problem with.
And
Bill Gaines said, fuck it, we're going to print.
I'm sorry, I got hyped up. The reason we worship Bill Gaines as our deity around here is that he fought for it, and he fucking threw a goddamn fit, righteous fury, and eventually went ahead and published it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. So Judgment Day, originally published 1953, Comics Code Administrator Judge, I believe he was actually a judge too, Charles Murphy, rejected the story because the astronaut was black. William Gaines, EC Comics publisher, ran the story anyways. The art is by Joe Orlando.
There is a book about EC's history of activism that I've been wanting to get, and I just never have pulled the trigger on buying it. It's in one of my wish lists on Amazon or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'll have to get that at some point, and maybe we can cover some stuff from that, because apparently this isn't the only example of EC doing base shit. So.
EC, they did a lot of horror comics, a lot of schlock, but they had a lot of great stuff as well, and I would definitely recommend checking them out. As a historical piece, the history of comics, a lot of comics history we see today is a lot of Marvel and DC stuff, and the 50s were not a good time for Marvel and DC, if we're all being honest. I don't think Marvel's even around yet. I think they're still timely.
Yeah, they were still timely at that point. Captain America had only been around a couple of years.
Yeah, so it's this is some foundational comics, some great sci-fi, and a piece of show history. And this is why we praise Bill Gaines.
And on that note, subscribe to Bob of the Old Ways.
I wanted to mention something.
Oh, mention it, Bob.
Yep.
Just to mention, to remind people, speaking of comics, that the first DC Marvel crossover in more than 20 years is almost upon us. And we found out this week that it's not just going to be Batman and Deadpool. Reporting is, this has not been verified, but some of the art has been leaked for variant covers, that the backup stories in the Batman and Deadpool crossover are going to be Green Arrow and Daredevil.
Shut the fuck up.
And Crypto the Super Dog and Jeff the Land Shark.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
It's not been verified, but we've seen variant cover art, and I'm really excited about all of those crossovers.
Pretty smart.
Somehow both incredibly badass and terrifyingly adorable.
No.
And we've also seen some leaked images of Wonder Woman paired with someone next to her whose name ends in the letters ICA. So that's either Captain America, which I'm hoping for, or Miss America, Chavez? America Chavez.
Chavez, yeah. Oh, I like either of those.
So,
Fuck yeah! You keep dreaming.
Give me that Combo Man revival. You know what I mean?
Oh, there we go.
It was just a mismatch of different like parts of his body were different characters for no reason. It's crazy.
Yep.
But what is Big Boss Nass? Sorry, I'm not gonna do it.
No.
Not doing it. All right. Yeah, you guys are wonderful. Thank you very much for being here and for fapping with us.
Yes.
As to all Bob just said.
Damn, that's hot.
It's true.
Yeah.
Indeed. And also, you know what? Be sure to say this out loud, like every day.
Fuck off, Hitler.
Every day.
Have a good one, folks.
May Bill Gaines shine his heavenly light upon you and impregnate you with many happy days and joy fetuses. May your anuses be cleansed by the purifying light that exudes from Bill Gaines' eternal dragon phallus. Should you meet your mortal demise this day, go with comfort that you have satisfied the commands of the one true Bill, those being this: read comic books. Fuck the dumb shit. Be yourself. Love each other. Also, read more comics and grow your hair out all goddamn while. Amen.
Actual fandom is not going to stop.